Śrīmad, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki, Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parvajakacharya Astatar Sat Śrīmad, His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki, Antakoti Vaishnavindi ki, Acharya Sohaidas Thakur ki, Hemsako Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Veda Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki, Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki, Vrindavadam ki, Navadvip Mayapurdam ki, Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Ganga Maya ki, Yamuna Maya ki, Tulasi Devi ki, Bhakti Devi ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasaya Budalaya Shmiti Satsapadas Goswami. Satsavidama Devani Tamasa Vishnu Mukti Pratnai. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna. I have a short quiz. I don't want Mahotsva to answer this time because he answered last time. What does Yamuna Tiravanacharya mean? Anybody?
By the banks of the Yamuna. One of the wonders by the banks of the Yamuna.
Very close. You only missed one word, Vana. Yeah, one who wanders through the forest on the banks of the river Yamuna performing his beautiful pastimes. Okay. So it's good to memorize what the prayers mean so we can relish them more deeply. Reading from the Preaching is the Essence, compilation of Srila Prabhupada's instructions on preaching. The greatest service is preaching. A Vaishnava is recognized by his preaching work. So this is from a verse in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 20, text 6, the verse and purport. The verse says, if one releases a conditioned soul or imprisoned person according to religious principles, he himself is also released from material bondage by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport, the greatest service one can render to the Lord is to try to infuse devotional service into the heart of the conditioned soul so that the conditioned soul may be released from conditional life. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that a Vaishnava is recognized by his preaching work, that is, by convincing the conditioned soul about his eternal position. It is the living entity's eternal position to serve the Lord. Therefore, to help one get relief from material bondage is to awaken one to the dormant understanding that he is the eternal servant of Krishna. So, that's pretty clear. Lord Chaitanya said the identity of the living entity is Krishna Sripoi, Jiva Sripoi Krishna Nityadas. The identity of the jiva is that he's eternally the servant of Krishna. Beta, let's see, he's Chatasta Shakti, and he's Beta Bakash. He's simultaneously one with and different from Krishna. So because we're one with Krishna, we're spiritual, but because we're different than Krishna, we're very tiny and Krishna is very great. So our position is to serve the great. So because people don't know about their eternal position, they're engaged in temporary activities of sense gratification, as Prahladananda Swami was reminding us. They're looking for pleasure here, and they're not finding it, and they're looking for pleasure there, and they're not finding it, and they're looking. But So we're to inform them that they're looking in the wrong place. And we see that basically the most striking thing to me on Harinam is the number of people who don't care about what we're doing. After a certain point, I have to stop trying to, show the people the pamphlets and just dance because it's too depressing. No. But so we take turns doing the book table. So, but yeah, people are completely absorbed in their material life, and they don't think that we have anything to offer them. Many people, sometimes you show it to them, and they give some gesture like, who needs this? So we can see, because it takes a lot of energy to convince a person, to even get a person interested to hear about their eternal identity, that such a person is very, 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 very dear to Krishna, who takes the trouble to make that knowledge available. We can actually understand how dear that person is to Krishna, because that's the one thing that can provide them eternal happiness. And you can see there's not many people who are inquisitive out there. We met one person who wanted to be a monk, so he was our best candidate yesterday. Hopefully, he talked to Gopal Champu, hopefully got him fired up to become a Hare Krishna monk. He gave 20 and he took Bhagavatam, the SSR, and the small sets, yeah. So that's why we're out there, actually, because there are a few sincere souls, and otherwise they'll just become Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons. So Srila Prabhupada in his transcendental literature has given us so much more knowledge about God and the soul than the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons give their people. So we have a lot more to offer in terms of detailed knowledge of the Lord, His abode, of the different relationships we can have with Him, even the different emotions we can have in those relationships. We know the 6 different kinds of smiling and laughing in devotional service. Atihasa, Abhihasada. So much detailed knowledge is there of life in the spiritual world that we can provide people, especially if they get the Saptarishi. That's right. You get the nectar of devotion. Right? So we'll continue to read from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. We are still going through the biography of Lord Chaitanya in the beginning, or did we finish it? There's a little bit. There should be a marker.
It's the paragraph after that.
Okay. Oh, here it is. There is the marker, but the marker is in the middle, so that's not as good as putting the marker on the edge. So we're hearing about Prakashananda Saraswati. After this, a great meeting was arranged by the devotees of the Lord, in which all the sannyasis were invited, including the Lord and Prakashananda Saraswati. In this meeting, both the scholars, the Lord and Prakashananda, had a long discourse on the spiritual values of the Sankirtan movement, and a summary is given below. The great Mayavadi sannyasi, Prakashananda, inquired from the Lord as to the reason for his preferring the Sankirtan movement to the study of Vedanta Sutra. Prakashananda said, "It is the duty of sannyasi to read the Vedanta Sutra." What caused the Lord to indulge in Sankirtan? Oh, no. After this inquiry, the Lord submissively replied, "I have taken to the Sankirtan movement instead of the study of Vedanta because I am a great fool." The Lord thus represented himself as one of the numberless fools of this age who are absolutely incapable of studying the Vedanta philosophy. The fool's indulgence in the study of Vedanta has caused so much havoc in society. Smash. The Lord thus continued, and because I am a great fool, my spiritual master forbade me to play with the Vedanta philosophy. He said it is better that I chant the holy name of the Lord, for that would deliver me from material bondage. In this age of Kali, there is no other religion but the glorification of the Lord by the utterance of His holy name. That is the injunction of all the revealed scriptures. And my spiritual master taught me one shloka from the Brihan Naradiya Purana. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kolon ashteva, nashteva, nashteva, gatir anyata. So on the order of my spiritual master, I chant the holy name of Hari, and I am now mad after this holy name. Whenever I utter the holy name, I forget myself completely, and sometimes I laugh, cry, and dance like a madman. I thought that I'd actually gone mad by this process of chanting, and therefore I asked my spiritual master about it. He informed me that this was the real effect of chanting the holy name, which produces a transcendental emotion that is a rare manifestation. It is a sign of love of God, which is the ultimate end of life. Love of God is transcendental to liberation, mukti. And thus it is called the fifth stage of transcendental realization, above the stage of liberation. By chanting the holy name of Krishna, one attains the stage of love of God. And it was good that I fortunately was favored with the blessing. So we can continue the dialogue, but that's a key point, that the only religion of the age is chanting the holy name, and that the goal of religion is to develop love for God. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to South India, he asked the Tattvavadis what the goal was and how it was to be obtained. And the Tattvavadis said the goal is to go back to Godhead, and the process to attain it is by doing your varnashram duty as an offering to the Lord. And Lord Chaitanya heavied him out and said, "Why are you playing with me duplicitously? I think you don't know the actual goal of life or how to attain it. I know the goal of life is love of God, and that is attained by hearing and chanting His glories." So that's a theme, that the goal is love of God and is attained by devotional service, and the best devotional service is Sankirtan, the congregational chanting of the holy name. The one verse that describes Lord Chaitanya's appearance, the main verse in the Bhagavatam, mentions the Sankirtan. It's so important. So many other processes of devotional service, right? There's 5 important processes of devotional service, but what's mentioned? The Sankirtan. So we'll continue with our reading of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're on 1, 2, 10. Kamasya na Indriya Pritihi Labha Jiveta Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa na Artaha Yaha Sha Iha whatsoever else. Karma bihi by occupational activities. Sorry, we were just doing the words, weren't we? Kamasyanandriya pritir Labo jiveta yavata Jivasya tattva jigyasa Nartoyasya karma bihi.
Nartoyasya karma bihi.
Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Jivasya tattva jigyasa.
Jivasya tattva jigyasa.
Nartoyasya karma bihi.
Nartoyasya karma bihi.
Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Jivasya tattva jigyasa.
Jivasya tattva jigyasa.
Nartoyasya karma bihi.
Nartoyasya karma bihi. Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Jivasya tattva vijnanam.
Jivasya
Jivasya tattva jigyasa. Nartoyasya karma bihi.
Nartoyasya karma bihi.
Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Jivasya tattva jigyasa.
Jivasya tattva jigyasa.
Nartoyasya karma bihi.
Nartoyasya karma bihi.
Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Jivasya tattva jigyasa.
Jivasya tattva jigyasa.
Nartoyasya karma bihi.
Nartoyasya karma bihi. Anybody else want to chant? It's an important verse. It's good we chant as much as possible. Okay.
Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Jivasya tattva jigyasa.
Jivasya tattva jigyasa.
Nartoyasya karma bihi.
Nartoyasya karma bihi.
Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Kamasyanendriya pritir.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Labho jiveta yavata.
Jivasya tattva jigyasa.
Jivasya tattva jigyasa.
Nartoyasya karma bihi.
Nartoyasya karma bihi. Mataji, you want to chant? Like to chant? Like to chant? You don't have it. A lot of people bring their phones, so they have the. Oh, no worries. Would you like to borrow the book and chant? Okay. Kamasyanendriya pritir. Labho jiveta yavata. Jivasya tattva jigyasa. Nartoyasya karma bihi. Kamasya. Of desires. Na. Not. Indriya. Senses. Pritihi. Satisfaction. Labha. Gain. Jiveta. Self-preservation. Yavata. So much so. Jivasya. Of the living being. Tattva. The absolute truth. Jigyasa. Inquiries. Na. Not. Artaha. End. Yacha iha. Whatsoever else. Karma bihi. By occupational activities. Translation. Life's desire should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life for self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth, nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Please repeat. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation. Since the human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth, nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Prabhupada.
The completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed toward the fulfillment of desires and sense gratification. In such civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. In politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion or even salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. In the political field, the leaders of men fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification. The voters adore the so-called leaders only when they promise sense gratification. As soon as the voters are dissatisfied in their own sense gratification, they dethrone the leaders. The leaders must always disappoint the voters by not satisfying their senses. The same is applicable in other fields. No one is serious about the problems of life. Even those who are on the path of salvation desire to become one with the absolute truth and desire to commit spiritual suicide for sense gratification. But the Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification. One should satisfy the senses only so much as required for self-preservation and not for sense gratification. Because the body is made of senses which also require a certain amount of satisfaction, there are regular instructions for satisfying such senses. But the senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment. For example, marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense enjoyment. In the absence of voluntary restraint, there is propaganda for family planning, but foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is a search after the absolute truth. Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. In every sphere of life, therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth. That sort of engagement will make one happy because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. And what that absolute truth is explained as follows. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshur-unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu-padaya Krishna-prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesh Univadi Pastyatya Deshatani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Veda Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So there's different relevant verses could be quoted and different points could be made consistent with the purport and verse. There's a nice verse in the Gita. Avritam jnanam etena jnanino nityavarina kamarupena konteya dusparena analenacha 3:39, which describes that how the living entity's pure consciousness is covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which burns like fire and is never satisfied. So people think that they will, by the process of sense gratification, they will attain a state of satisfaction, but that's not actually possible. According to that verse, one's lusty desires are never satisfied. That's the There's actually a nice purport in the Gita. Could somebody hand me the Gita because it's easier to find? You could find it on my phone, but it would take a while. It has to do with how everyone is trying to find satisfaction through acting in the mode of passion. In the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there's the different modes of material nature are described, and the fault of acting in the mode of passion is mentioned. Let's see. In the mode of passion, people become greedy, and their hankering for sense enjoyment has no limit. One can see that even if one has enough money and adequate arrangements for sense gratification, there is neither happiness nor peace of mind. That is not possible because one is situated in the mode of passion. If one wants happiness at all, his money will not help him. He has to elevate himself to the mode of goodness by practicing Krishna consciousness. That's earlier in this chapter. It describes the consciousness of one in the mode of passion. Mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings. And in the divine and demoniac nature chapter, it's also they believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of their life, their anxiety is immeasurable.
Oh my God.
Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires and absorbed in lust and anger, they secure money by illegal means for sense gratification. This is 16, 11, and 12. And the previous verse, 14:7, is the mode of passions born of unlimited desires and longings. So this is a state of consciousness people get themselves in. They have all these desires and they can never be satisfied. So Prabhupada gives the solution is to actually not to try to satisfy desires, but to get out of the mode of passion. And although it is possible to gradually cultivate the mode of goodness, in this age it's very difficult for people to gradually cultivate the mode of goodness in comparison to how easy it is to engage in devotional service. Basically just hearing and chanting about Krishna and eating vegetarian food that's offered to Krishna. You can easily cultivate devotional service and you can easily get out of the mode of passion. So, and you can come to understand that actually human life is meant for self-realization. Because basically the people are so overwhelmed with all these material desires, they don't even have time to think about self-realization. And so let's see. Another point that could be made about sense gratification is that we have spiritual senses. That we have there's the material senses of the body, but there's the spiritual senses of the soul. And by engaging in devotional service, we satisfy the spiritual senses of the soul. So we have a sense of hearing. So when we hear about Krishna, we hear the name of Krishna, we hear the instructions of Krishna, we hear the pastimes of Krishna, we hear descriptions of the form of Krishna, that our sense of hearing is satisfied on the spiritual plane. And when we see the form of Krishna, our eyes are satisfied. Right? Actually, the gopis were cursing the Creator because he created eyelids that blink. And for that short duration of time, they couldn't see the beautiful face of Krishna. So that's how beautiful Krishna is. That's reality.
Wow.
I was noticing during one of the during the Mangal Arati this morning, a certain devotee wasn't even looking at the deity. He was like sort of wandering around in the back of the temple. But they actually, during the Arati, we're supposed to be meditating on the form and the deity. That's the one time in the day in our life where we're actually concentrating our eyes on the form of Krishna. And our eyes can be satisfied that way. Otherwise, we'll look at so many material forms, and none of those material forms will satisfy our mind. Sometimes they, to advertise their material products, they came up with a strategy of using pictures of pretty girls, even though the girls have nothing to do with the thing that's actually being sold. So I was working with Sadhaputta, and I had to throw out his, he would get catalogs from different companies, like we have that U-Line catalog there. We would get different kinds of catalogs because we were a business and we ordered stuff. So you have to throw out the catalogs because they come every month or so. So I was looking through these catalogs, and this catalog for something that had a picture of a pretty girl on it, So I'd be throwing them out periodically, and I was thinking, they should get a new girl on this catalog. It's the same old girl that's been on here before, But so that's because it's a mundane thing, But like we see the same old deity every day with the same old outfits, right? But nobody thinks, we should get a new deity, right? Nobody thinks like that because it's a spiritual form. It's ever fresh, Even though the deity has a finite number of outfits, we never think, we should get a new deity with new outfits. What's this, Because Krishna is ever fresh. His form is ever fresh. Certainly the mantra, people they can't understand how we can say the same. You're just saying the same old thing over and over. But it's actually spiritual vibration, so it's ever fresh. You don't get tired of it unless you're on the material plane and you don't appreciate the spiritual nature of it. Which, of course, in the beginning, it's like that, and that's why the Rupa Goswami says our disease condition is like jaundice, and the cure for jaundice is sugar cane juice. But when one has jaundice, the sugar cane juice doesn't taste sweet; it tastes bitter. So actually, the name of Krishna tastes sweet, and the pastimes, and the activities, and the instructions, it's all very sweet. But because of our dull material senses that are covering our spiritual senses, we can't perceive it. But by engaging ourselves in devotional service by force, by forcing our mind to think of Krishna, our mind becomes purified. Yeah. So after we perform devotional service for a while, most of the time devotional service is fun. But every once in a while, it's not fun. So we have to remember that we have to force our mind to think of Krishna anyway, whether it's fun or not, because by forcing our mind to think of Krishna, our mind will become purified. And by not forcing our mind to think of Krishna, our mind won't become purified. So we have to perform the little austerity of forcing our mind to think of Krishna when it doesn't feel like it in the beginning, because then it will feel like it in the end. And ultimately we'll get to the point where we're like the gopis. And I remember one time I would go to the evening arati in Alachua every night, because as a bhakt I was trained up that Prabhupada had a morning and an evening program, and you were supposed to go to both of them. And even though the vast number of people in the community didn't go to the evening program, and maybe only 10% of the people went to the morning program, still I went to the evening program. But one time they were painting the deities, and we couldn't see them, so I went to the Pujari room and I got a picture of the deities and set it on the hundi and chanted the evening arati song to them, because I was so attached to chanting for the pleasure of the deities. So you get attached to like I was so upset with Mahotsav not telling me when they changed the time of the Mangal Arati, when we set the clocks back. Instead of doing it at the proper time at 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, they decided to do it after the morning program, so I missed the Mangal Arati because nobody told me about it. So I had some taste for going, Other people would think, oh great, I got to sleep an extra hour. Who cares about Mangal Arati? Actually, I did a really good job of that. because I had plenty of sleep. But so I noticed that I had some attachment for going to Mangalarati, because otherwise I would have been thankful that Mahotsav didn't tell me that when Mangalarati was. So we see that even if we just force ourselves to engage in these devotional services, we acquire taste, because it is the nature of the soul. And sometimes we don't appreciate so much the association of the devotees, then we go home and we don't have the association of devotees, and then we come back, we actually realize that we really missed the devotees, we missed the deities, we missed the kirtan, we missed the prasad. We actually acquired a taste for a lot of devotional things that we didn't really notice until it wasn't there. And sometimes Krishna purposely separates us from the devotees so we'll reappreciate them. So there's a transcendental taste. We have transcendental senses, and they feel a transcendental satisfaction engaged in the service of the Lord. And we're meant to experience that, but that we don't even know about that until we begin to inquire about self-realization, about inquiring about our spiritual self. So that's the activity of the human being. And many, many times in many, many places, Srila Prabhupada makes that point that the distinction between a human being and an animal is that the human being can inquire about the absolute truth. The human being can practice religion. You don't see the dogs and cats going to church, right? It's very rare. Of course, Janananda Maharaj has a book about animals in devotional service, and there are stories like there was a cat that would come to Bhagavatam class in San Diego. Even actually, Ramabhadra was telling us there was a cat that used to go to Mangalarati in Brooklyn. That would be I don't know if they still had only 4 people going to Mangalarati, but that would be a big increase. There was a cushion in back. The cat would sit on the cushion and stay for the whole arati and then go on its way. But generally, the animals they can't choose to begin devotional service. If an animal is found to be attracted to the devotional service, it's generally because they had a previous human birth and they slipped up and they got degraded temporarily as an animal. But it's not. Generally, the consciousness of the animal isn't so elevated that they can inquire. So we have this great opportunity. We can inquire, who am I? What is God? What is our relationship? How can I develop that relationship? How can I perfect that relationship? And so we're really fortunate that somehow or other we encounter this knowledge, so we can actually experience unlimited spiritual pleasure. There's a nice verse in the Gita. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. So who else is offering unlimited happiness? Everyone, all these advertisers are trying to hype up their product, so that we'll buy it. But what product out there has the capability of giving us unlimited happiness? Nothing. But we can actually, by absorbing our mind in the unlimitedly happy Krishna, we can actually become unlimitedly happy. It just requires enthusiasm. So we actually have something real to offer people. Everyone has a life that's a mixture of happiness and distress that will end after a few years, and it's a great tragedy because people don't know what's happening at the time of death. They don't know either they think they're going to be extinct altogether, which is a scary thought, to cease to exist. Or they don't know at all. So everyone is in a fearful situation, not knowing their ultimate future. But our ultimate future is that by remembering Krishna at the end of life, we're going to go to Krishna. He promises it in many places. Whoever remembers me at the time of death, he attains me without doubt. So we practice remembering Krishna, and it's good to remember Krishna, especially in danger, because then when the ultimate danger, death itself, comes, we'll be practiced. Sometimes, I remember one time I was driving with, Tulsi Rani, Shruti Sagar, and Tanya. We were going to Jacksonville for the program, and it just started raining, and the road was a little icy, and the car stopped in front of us, and Tulsi Rani slammed down the brakes, and we slid into the car in front of us. So I think I said Gauranga, and Achinta Chaitanya was reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. I think the other two said Krishna, but we all four of us were remembering Krishna, in case it was worse than it was. It's funny because then the policeman went around, checking everyone's license in the car, and they're all in their 20s, and I was in my 50s, and but I thought of us, we're all friends, we're going to go to the program in Jacksonville and hear and chant about Krishna together, and so they said, well, what are you doing with all these guys? So I, because I didn't think it was weird, so I just said, well, I'm just here so that they don't get into trouble. Because usually, you're with friends at your own age, there's not so much age difference. But we're beyond these distinctions of age, gender, color. Just chanting Hare Krishna with our friends. So if we practice remembering Krishna in the times of tragedy, then it'll be easy to remember Krishna at the ultimate tragedy. So this desire for self-realization, inquiry about the absolute truth, is the thing that distinguishes us from the animals, and we should always remember that. If we are not interested in the absolute truth and self-realization, then we're no better than a dull animal, and it's so, Prabhupada makes that point so many times. It's a really striking thing in his preaching if you compare it to the preaching of other missions or something. It makes it so clear, and that sometimes we're too much interested in different kinds of sense gratification, like they're too addicted to sex life because sex life is really popular. But when you think about it, sex life is something that the animals enjoy. It's not even a human pleasure; it's a subhuman pleasure. So why am I so attached to this subhuman pleasure that's enjoyed by the hogs and dogs that eat stool, right? Somebody was saying they don't like to give out that spiritual yoga book because it starts off right off the bat with hogs that eat stool. What's that? The Bhakti Yoga one's a lot better. It talks about universal love and how we have to find our difficulty is we haven't found the ultimate object of our love, and that object of our love is Krishna. When our love is fully reposed in Krishna, then we'll be satisfied. It's a lot more upbeat. Where people are not ready to hear about the hogs and dogs that eat stool. Now, I read that. It's a great verse, actually, because it's very relevant to our discussion today.
That lady that came up to you, in the video?
Really?
Usually, when I'm shooting that book, I ask people, bro, you like sex, right? They're like, I love sex, bro. Bro, this book is all about sex. You should do that.
This book tells the truth about sex. It's the first verse. Lord Vrishabhadev told his sons, "My dear boys, of the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for the dogs and hogs that eat stool. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified, and when one attains this position, he attains eternal, blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever. So that's an amazing thing, that there actually, in this very life, we can experience eternal spiritual bliss, which is transcendental to material happiness and continues forever. And if you don't believe it, look at Praladananda Swami.
That's true.
Isn't he? He's like an embodiment of Praladananda Swami. He was just here with us. He sang on the Harinama like last week, you know. But he's really.
What verse is it?
That's a 5.1. That's the first verse of the 5th chapter. The teachings of our Lord Rishabhadev to his sons. In Nayan Deha Bhajan Putra Kathyen Satvam Yusmad was Yusmad Shudyat Brahma Sokyam Tunantam, right? Yeah. Unlimited spiritual happiness. Yeah. And it's actually, it can be experienced just by absorbing the mind in Krishna. Really. The mind has to be completely absorbed in Krishna. Wherever the mind wanders, we bring it back to Krishna. If our mind is only on Krishna, then we're experiencing the bliss of Krishna. Yeah? So it's only our fault that we haven't fixed our mind on Krishna. There's a very powerful purport in the Bhagavad Gita, 272, where Srila Prabhupada says, one can attain Krishna consciousness or divine life at once, within a second, or one may not attain such a state of life even after millions of births. It is only a matter of understanding and accepting the fact. Katvanga Maharaj attained this state of life just a few minutes before his death by surrendering unto Krishna. So the idea is if we actually embraced our spiritual identity, I am the servant of Krishna, and from now on we just serve Krishna, then we did it. So we wish everyone the best of luck. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I guess you're first.
You're talking about how people are cynical towards Harinama, they just don't care about the Harinama. So yesterday, like the last experience we had before we like packed the cart up, wrapped the show up, it was like, I was just shooting books, I was about to go to one group of people, there's one lady like, hey, come here. So I thought like maybe she wanted like the 7 Saptarishis or something. And I thought she was like very enthusiastic. And like, she started off by saying, hi, yeah, you guys are loud. You guys are disturbing the whole atmosphere. You guys are she's like shapeshifted into like this crazy like psycho woman, started like screaming on top of her lungs, and I was like so taken aback, couldn't even say a word. But she was like, I couldn't say a word. Can you believe it?
Personification of the divine.
It was so crazy.
Really like it.
Yeah. Asatyama pratishtamte. They don't think there's anything beyond their sense of perception.
Yeah, we're singing in Munich in front of a subway station. This guy came down from his office, across the street, across the plaza, and said, "Stop that. The more I hear that sound, the more angry I become."
Oh my God. What a demon.
Yeah, so we do see the divine and the demonic. So some people want to become monks, right? And other people want to become more angry than what they're doing. Yeah. You had something?
Yeah, I had a question. Prabhupada talks about sense gratification here and how one can regulate that sense gratification because in a sense it is also required.
Right.
But so my question was like, in Krishna consciousness, we'll have devotees, or even amongst ourselves, we have that. How does one, regulate it? How does one properly regulate that and make sure that it doesn't become like a long-term impediment on the Krishna consciousness?
Well, there's different kinds of sense gratification. There's sex life, which is recommended to be used for procreation of children. So that's how that's regulated once a month during the proper time of the cycle of the lady. And then other sense gratification, eating, eat at regulated times, you don't snack. Odd times, you don't eat more than you can digest, just because it tastes good. Then if you eat too much, then you sleep too much, and you can do less service. And eating is supposed to be describes eating in Bhagavad Gita. 17.8 talks about proper eating in the mode of goodness. Eating in the mode of goodness. Foods that are dear to those in the mode of goodness, they increase the duration of life, they purify one's existence, they give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Such foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. So if you eat foods that decrease the duration of your life, that's not recommended. We don't want to go swimming likes to make that point. Because sometimes the food in the temple isn't that healthy. But then it's not in the mode of goodness. So yeah, you should eat at regulated times. Not too much. If you notice that if you eat too much at night, it's hard to get up in the morning and keep fasting. Yes, sir.
There's a question online.
Ankit.
Bhakta Ankit.
Yes.
We have one regular question. Sends in a question every day.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for the class. For the devotees, it is the pleasure of the senses from sense objects which accompany bhakti. For the devotees, is the pleasure of the senses from sense objects which accompany bhakti considered as sense gratification? Ayendra Prabhu mentioned in one of his classes, quoting Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that one who enjoys spiritual objects for the sake of one's enjoyment is bound to stay here forever. Example, if a devotee honors palatable prasadam, since it is palatable to the senses he is enjoying, he could have honored simple prasad as well, which is still nourishing and healthy, but he went for palatable prasad. So he seems to be interested in enjoying the spiritual objects for the sake of his sense enjoyment. Can enjoying such spiritual objects bind us? Looks like it does. Can you please clarify?
Yeah, so the example is prasadam. Of course, Lord Chaitanya recommends to Raghunath Das Goswami that one not eat palatable foodstuffs, especially because he was in the renounced order of life. It's especially important for people in the renounced order of life. And then Prabhupada writes that if one purposely offers opulent food to the deity with the intention of enjoying it later, then that's a mode of passion. Forget exactly how he says it. So yeah, you have to be careful about that. But it's also said that there's no reaction to taking too much prasad. It's like not an offense. But the fact that the spirit of enjoyment, the conception of wanting to be the enjoyer does bind us, to this world. So there's a subtle distinction between enjoying Krishna's association and which is the natural pleasure of the soul, and exploiting Krishna for sense gratification. But it's the fact that it's not to enjoy it's not considered, for example, to enjoy the beauty of the deity isn't considered sense gratification. There's a nice statement about that in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 3rd canto, 25th chapter.
I love that chapter.
35. So cool. Which says, I think it's in the curriculum. Yeah. It's described that there are different procedures, rules, or regulations which are followed in temples of Vishnu, and the devotees go there and see the deity, the Vigraha, and spiritually enjoy the form, because all of the deities are benevolent. Okay, so that's spiritually enjoyment of the form, because all the deities are benevolent, is considered to be okay. It's not considered, some kind of perversity. So there is spiritual enjoyment of contacting, bringing the senses in contact with Krishna, which is considered. Like there's another God, I should remember. It's in the Gita. There's basically, we're described as being predominated in joys. We enjoy being predominated by Krishna rather than enjoying predominating Krishna. So as long as we're taking pleasure in being predominated by Krishna, we're in the proper consciousness. But it's not like it's not like enjoyment is all wrong. Right? The gopis enjoy decorating themselves because they want to please Krishna, not because they're vain and they want to make themselves look beautiful, so they can look at themselves in the mirror, and so that Krishna can enjoy loving them. So you might look at it, and calculate it as being selfish, but because they're doing it for the pleasure of Krishna, they're doing it for Krishna's pleasure. So, in terms of food, you definitely can get in the mode of passion, the purpose they offer things to. But so Prabhupada's program was to basically we eat simple food during the week, and he did allow people to have a Sunday feast that was a bit off. Just reading my Guru Maharaj's blog, and he was describing 26th 2nd Avenue and how Gargamuni was selling the incense by saying that you can chant Hare Krishna with the incense burning, and how he was somebody wanted one of the free flyers, and he was a treasurer, and said that, but it costs us money to print, so it's better to give a donation. And then Satsuma was writing that while he was saying this, he was picking some prasadam from his fourth plate. But another thing is that you can see that if it's easy to see, I think, if you eat too much, if it's distracting from your devotional service, like if it's taking time out of your devotional service, or if you have to sleep extra because you ate so much, because ideally that we want to the ideal is to spend as much time serving and as little time eating and sleeping as possible. And for people who are progressive in devotional service, they're satisfied with eating less as time goes on. So the key thing is to be enthusiastic about performing devotional service, and then the detachment comes as a result of that. Mm-hmm. So that's the most important thing, is to cultivate attachment to Krishna, and then detachment from sense gratification is natural. Therefore, we, like on Ekadashi, it's better to chant extra rounds than it is to fast, you know. And it's easier too. But there's so much power in chanting the holy name. And fasting is a nice thing to do, but you know, it doesn't. You don't benefit as much by fasting as you do by doing more positive devotional service, because that's where the key is absorbing the mind in Krishna. Sometimes, I remember one time I decided, you know, I'm going to just eat fruit on the Ekadashi, but I found I was spending so much time getting fruit, washing it, offering it. You know, it's better that I just go and eat, you know, whatever they serve out of the prasadam hall. I had a lot more time to chant japa, you know. So, anything else? Yes, sir.
We should probably wrap up now.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Yuka is coming.
Yeah, he already.
He has a question.
So yeah, one more question.
In your opinion, who of these two are more fortunate? Someone who enjoys bountiful sense gratification, but in the end finds it's all for naught, or someone who is frustrated in trying to get those things and tries to seek spiritual wisdom instead? They both end up in the same place, but who is more fortunate of the two?
The person who takes spiritual life seriously sooner is more fortunate than one who takes it seriously later.
If they're okay with it at the same time, they find it at the same time. Who is more fortunate? Someone who gets wine, women, and money, or someone who is frustrated in their attempts to get those things? And they go to spiritual
as long as they completely give up the aspiration for either, whether they had it or they didn't have it, it doesn't matter. Because see, we've all had all these things in previous lives, you know. So sometimes people think, oh, I didn't enjoy this life, but you enjoyed it last life. You know, it's not like you have to enjoy it this life, you know. But the important thing is to have the realization that whether you have it or whether you don't have it, that there's no way it's going to satisfy you, you know. So, I mean, one thing that was interesting was I was talking to some swamis about getting married, because you know, a lot of people who were swamis actually ended up getting married at a certain point in our history, you know. So I thought I should figure out whether I should get married or not get married before I became a swami, because it would be better. So no, I was asking. I asked two swamis, you know, whether they thought. I asked them the question: do you think you're better swamis because you went through the Grihastha ashram? I asked two swamis who went through the Grihastha ashram, which there are not so many of, Mukunda Maharaj and Umapati Swami, who are both previous. Yeah, but those are the ones I asked. So, but neither of them said, I feel that that it was really good. I went through that, and I'm much more detached. You know, none of them said that, which was interesting to me anyway. So, but the important thing is one comes to the realization that sense gratification won't satisfy the soul, whether they actually do it or they don't do it somehow or other. It's not actually required that you do it, because by hearing from a sadhu you can come to that conclusion without having to do it. But so yeah. So thank you for your time. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki.